Right, guys, we're back again, another week, Bring Others Along podcast. And as usual, a very special guest. And this one was a long, long time in the making. So I'm super excited to have someone who I definitely hold in high regard. I've known him for almost a decade now, I would say, pretty much. And I've definitely seen the trajectory and the rise, I would say, to where he is today. So founder, CEO, investor, numerous different companies, from Cloverleaf, Trident, and a few other asset management companies in the property field. So we're definitely going to get into all of those today. And I'm really intrigued and really privileged, actually, for you guys to really get a flavor for how he's achieved his success, how he's built his companies, and just the overall growth that he's or that I've been witnessing over the last decade or so. So, yeah, please welcome Mr. Arjun Thaker to the show. Welcome, my bro.
Good to be on the board. Good to be on board. Looking forward to it.
No, it's going to be a dope conversation because obviously, like I said, I've been rocking with you for a long time. I've known you for a long time. We've shared a few spaces in the tech space, some places we work together, but I think we've never really sat down and had a conversation as to how the young kind of Arjun has grown into the Arjun that you are today, or that everyone sees today. So I'm super intrigued to get into that part of the conversation and just take the audience on a bit of a journey as well, as to how that's all transpired for yourself. So we'll dive right in. Looking back, and actually, I was going to ask you this because we were talking offline just about kind of like I said, your story. But looking back, I don't know, 5-6 years old, looking at the young Arjun kind of wide-eyed, running around, probably getting into the same amount of mischief that you probably do now. But looking back then, what was the upbringing like? What was the dynamic like? Family, household, all that good stuff.
Wow. Okay. That's definitely taking it back quite some time, huh?
Just a little bit.
But, yeah, yeah. So life has been very interesting. It's definitely had a roller coaster effect. It's not been as smooth as maybe most people, but I've certainly learned a lot and gauged a lot from all the experiences I've had. So going all the way back to 5-6 years old, my parents had a shop, and they were, I guess, immigrants from Africa, Kenya. Their parents were immigrants from India to Africa. They were sent there to build the railroads, and then from there they obviously had to migrate from Kenya to the UK. So very challenging time, and from their challenges, they amassed, a method in which they could, prosper. So they set up a shop, and lo and behold, the shop really didn't work out. So I remember we were in India at the time, just gone back there again to visit some family, and all of a sudden, the person that my parents had given power of attorney to, something had happened. The shop was burnt down. We came back and all the accounts were empty. We were kind of homeless for when we came back. So about 5-6 years old, that was the time. We were in Coventry, and we basically had nowhere to go. And we just had to borrow money to get a plane ticket back from India to the UK. So I can imagine it being a very stressful time for my parents, to say the least. But that was the first major challenge in my life. And to kind of, I remember sitting there, just there was a situation where there was a red bike I really, really loved. And don't ask me why I remember it, but it's very vivid. But I remember I had to leave that behind. And it was the most traumatic experience of my life, at the time. But to kind of leave everything, move to a new home, move to a new environment. That was the first one of my new environments, because it happened a few times in my life as well. But Yeah, so we're going back into 5, 6 years old. It started off with quite a bit of turmoil, to say the least. Do you want to, shall I progress from there, or do you want to?
No, no, and I think it's important because we spoke about this offline in terms of when you see more or less successful people, or what we would deem to be successful people, in terms of stature, in terms of titles, in terms of just accumulated wealth. Usually it comes at a price, and there's a journey and there's a travel experience that they've all taken. And I think it's important, especially on this show, we try and really showcase people who are doing things for the culture and really pushing the community along. But I think it's also very important to share that journey. So like you said, similar to probably so many in the culture in our community who would have had some level of traumatic experiences, who would have gone through obviously a degree of hardship. Oftentimes those stories and those experiences are what shape us. So from that early time and memories that you would have had around 5, 6 years old, and really seeing your parents kind of go through that process of struggle, of making sure that hopefully things can get better or can bounce back. It's always curious for me, how, I guess, did that shape you in terms of your mindset, being exposed to that, kind of seeing, like you mentioned, kind of having to borrow money and moving around quite a bit. From that point onwards, was there a certain way in which, I guess, your parents then kind of maneuvered or educated you guys or shared, what and how things were at that stage? Or were you just kind of oblivious to it and, just kind of a typical, I guess, 5, 6, 7-year-old kid?
Very interesting point. So yeah, I was at that stage. Obviously, I didn't understand much at all.
Mm.
But what it did do is it shaped a level of foundation on being resilient, no matter what the circumstances, and also understanding that no matter how bad it gets, there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm.
As far as a trauma and so forth, I can imagine it being much more traumatic for my parents. It's a big gig, you're a parent yourself as well, Shane, right?
Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
understand that responsibility that you have towards your kids to make sure that they're protected, they're fed, or that feeling that you have on failures as well, to understand that, wow, I failed. Now, going back a few years after that, just seeing, us moving from house to house, trying to get stability in our life,
Mm.
but seeing how hard my father had to work, right? He wasn't a great businessman, wasn't really good in money, right? But what he did do is they set some incredible morals and goals in me and my sister's lives, where um, I saw him work extremely hard, to his bone, to ensure that we get, we've got food on our table, we've got a roof over our head, and naturally that brought a lot of arguments within the house, within the household. And I always remember there being a huge topic on money, this, money that, and we don't have this or we don't have that. And I remember shortly after, maybe not 6, 7 years old, but definitely around the year 10-year-old, 11-year-old me, I started understanding that, what, I'm tired. If you can't buy me that Freddo, right, I need to go off and make a way to find out how I can make a Freddo. And I remember when I was 11 and a half, maybe 12 years old, I actually made my first sale. So I was in the barber shop across the street from my house. And I remember somebody sitting there and speaking about how expensive TVs are, this, that, the other. We're not talking these slimline TVs we have now. We're talking ginormous, the shape of a house, type TVs. I remember him saying something in the region of, how expensive things are, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think a couple of days back, I realized that my uncle is actually switching his TVs, right? So he had a TV spare.
Mm.
Somebody else wanted a TV. And here I am, a 12-year-old, local in the area, but, at the hairdressers, always being that cheeky chap saying, well, look, if you want a TV, I can sell you a TV. I can give you a TV, what is it that you want? How much do you want to pay for this? And so they kind of dismissed me as some kind of, this cute little kid. Oh, bless him, this, that, the other. Um, And I remember turning up there. He said, "Yeah, no problem at all. If you bring me that TV, I'll give you, I think it was £150 at the time or something like that."
Wow.
Um, so I said, "Okay, sounds good." Determined as anything at all, thinking to myself, "Yes, I've got my Freddos." I go back to the house again. I get my friend, go down to my uncle's, who was just around the corner from where we lived, and we just go there. My uncle wasn't there at the time either. Okay, so we just go into the house,
Perfect timing.
pick up this TV, and walk it down the block right to this hairdresser's. And the owner of the hairdresser, who's actually, a friend of mine's father, he just looks at me and could not stop laughing. I mean, we're talking four different hairdressers in there, all cracking up laughing, thinking, "What on earth is this about?" He made the phone call and he made that transaction happen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it was. I guess the point I'm trying to make at the moment is, no matter how low you go, the intention is to be as resilient as possible,
Mm.
and opportunities will come in the weirdest and wonderful shape. You won't even imagine. That there taught me that a little bit of hard work and being there at any given time to seize the opportunity will actually work out in your favor. That was the first little glimpse of hope for me in life.
No, that's incredible, man. And I suppose, that story would probably resonate with a lot of people from the simple standpoint of, you know, just kind of being in the right place and at the right time and just seizing the moment, right? Because for so many of us, I think it's one of those things where you always hear it: opportunity knocks, be prepared, be ready, and yeah, you were definitely ready when I got the when I got the telly and came back. I made your first sale. I suppose what you explained earlier, and there's a lot to be said about what you witnessed, like you said with your dad and how hard he worked, to really put food on the table, obviously shelter over you and your sisters head as well. But I suppose this, that conversation, and I actually had this on a few episodes earlier with Chantel, I believe, who's heavy in the finance space and did a lot of great, or created, I should say, a lot of great resources, for young kids in regards to financial literacy. And the money conversation, is always one that's not predominantly heavy in the Black and brown community. It's not like, I suppose hopefully now, the narrative is being changed and we're actually having conversations with our kids and with each other about, money management, how to utilize money, how to leverage it to our advantage and stuff like that. So, in a roundabout way, it probably helped you, or shaped you in terms of like, this is how, I guess, later on in life, or maybe perhaps you will be exposed to how to better utilize money. And hopefully, from that point onwards, making your first sale, maybe we'll get into this a bit later in the story, I'm sure, about kind of the sales career and leadership and the many roles that you held. But it's interesting that that was kind of your first introduction to maybe entrepreneurship, or at least thinking, how can you kind of marry up, someone wanting something to you actually being able to deliver it to actually get the sale. So yeah, super dope story. Now we're at the age then, like you said, 11, 12 years old, definitely being resilient based on the circumstances that you've experienced and understanding now, what needs to happen or what you can do to kind of contribute, to improving the way that you're living at the moment. What's the next, 2, 3, 4 years looking like? We're going into, young adulthood, young teenager. What's that period of your life like?
Oh man.
Fun times.
Fun times, I remember. So I went from one primary school, because we moved from a rented house to another rented house. No, actually, then finally my dad got enough money to purchase his first house, right? And so he purchased his house. That's the story about where I sold the TV.
Mm.
And I guess when I went to that school, it was in a fairly rough kind of area, and I got bullied, right? Because Everyone else is wearing their Reeboks, their Nikes, the this, the that, the other, and I'm here with some broken high
Nice.
techs. You know the high techs, you know. um, I remember, you know, that it was really at that point there. I'm like, when I grow up, I don't want to ever be like this at all, etc., etc. So finding every opportunity that comes my way, and I'm too young to get a paper round at this time, right? However, there was a shop just around the corner from mine, and I went in there. I'm talking at least 50 times, right? Just saying to him, listen, give me a chance, give me a paper round. It's like, you're too young, you can't even carry the bag because they're heavy, you know? If no one's ever done a paper round before, you underestimate the strength you need, right? It doesn't matter the weather, rain, sunshine, people need their newspapers, yeah? Now, I remember going there so many times to say, right, give us a shot. I remember this one time, um, one of his regulars just couldn't come in for one reason or another. She said, okay, you can come in and do this one. So boom, this is my opportunity. I'm here now. Give me some paper round, you know.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, he just basically just found me to be very reliable and, you know, on it every single day without fail. I ended up doing 4 paper rounds whilst I was in primary school. Let me explain what that looks like, okay? So 5 a.m. wake up, okay? Um, through to, I'm doing 2 rounds, the heavy rounds, right? Going back there again and coming back. My parents used to do work for a local factory. So they used to sew like baby hats and baby clothing and pop them in a bag and sew them at home, pop them in a bag and then give them to the factory, right? Earning pennies on each item. So then I used to come back and help my mom, you know, fold some of these baby hats. I then used to get ready to go to primary school, year 6, I believe, yeah. And then come back and go straight for another 2 paper rounds. And I guess I look back at it now, I just had all the energy in the world. We used to have to climb these massive hills and all sorts, very tiring. So I did that for a number of years. And I think that really brought me strength, right? Because in the area, I used to be able to walk on the streets and, you know, some of the guys from school or so forth that were bullying me, that I'd have to duck and chase them, you know, to see 1 second, you know, can I walk around this corner? Can I not? Um, and and that was my primary school years, even throughout summertime, right? Then during summertime, I got so sick and tired of getting bullied, getting picked on. That's it, you know. I've now gone to the stage where I'm sick and tired of this. So with the money that I saved, and I used to give quite a bit of it back to my parents as well, you know. It's the thing of, you know, I feel like I have to give something back in return. I'm struggling right now.
Absolutely.
So I decided to go take up kickboxing. So it was in that summer between the transition of primary school through secondary school, I said to myself, right, this is not going to happen again. Took up kickboxing, and I went there in year 7 thinking, right, come on, who's going to say something? Who's going to do something, right? And that was it. I think at the first maybe week or 2 weeks, you know, I got into a confrontation with somebody, and I had to show off all the skills I've just picked up: the high kicks, the knees, the this, that, the other. And I'm not going to condone fighting in any sense, shape, or form, but that there set up a good foundation for me to, in essence, 1, get a name that you don't mess around with this person, but 2, gain a bit of popularity at the same time. And I remember I would still wear, you know, I used to have hair. I used to have these curtains, yeah. Middle parting.
Yeah, we'll definitely get the visuals up, but go on, if you can believe it.
Now you're talking many years ago, right? So I remember, you know, still wearing the school uniform, middle parting, this, that, the other. And a friend of mine, he was a little bit older, and he kind of said to me, "Don't worry, I'll take you down to a barber shop, and you know, let's go get you some shopping done." So anyway, I come back into school with my, hair slicked up, some spiky hair on the top and some designs on the side as well, right? Um, I turn up into school, and all of a sudden the popularity just spikes up. Now I'm this, I'm starting to get all this attention,
Nice.
and and boom, the confidence is now growing. I'm now, starting to hang out with the cool kids, and all of a sudden, just as I get all this reputation in year nine, um, we decide to move houses again, to a different area. And we're talking after year nine, the areas that we were living in, the tough schools, et cetera, et cetera. But now we're moving into kind of the suburbs, right? Because my parents have now overstretched and decided to take that house, and the property prices are increasing. So then they leveraged that to get themselves their other property that was in kind of a suburban area. I think I was like one of 5 different colored people in that area. So I was there ready to say, 1 second, I need to go off and stamp my mark in as soon as I come there, right? To let everyone know I'm not going to have this. And you can imagine already in my life at that stage, I went from 2 primary schools. I've then moved to 2 different secondary schools. So there's already a lot of movement in my life, right? I went there and I basically just stamped my foot down again, made everyone realize, 1 second, I'm here. I am here. There's no bullying here. Let's tame ourselves down. That went well. I kind of stayed there for a little while, but yet my reputation was still kind of getting the better of me. Now I've got friends in one area, also friends in another area. My network is expanding, quite a bit. And that's when my reputation started getting the better of me. I started to feel as though I'm kind of invincible, and started to get into trouble with the law. And we're talking between year 9 and year 11 at this time. Really start to get, rebellious, start to understand that there was actually a situation where, it was a fairly racist type environment at the time that I was there. So I wouldn't ever get into fights with people that were my age. I'd always get into fights with people that are older, right? From the school next door.
Wow.
So that kind of happened. I grew the reputation again, but then I got kicked out of that school. So I then went to another school in another area that is extreme. Now from 5 people, there's basically 2 people that are colored there, right? I think I was in that school for about 2 weeks because I ended up having a bunch of people surround me, and just to protect myself, I took a weapon in to school to say, no, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And I remember being expelled straight away, and my parents are now, what on earth is going on? This is crazy. What are we going to do? So I went to this final school, secondary school that was known in the whole of Leicester for its reputation, and not a good one either. But they accepted me, and I went there. And this is the time where I decided to say, right, I'm going to buckle my head in a little bit and see what I can do. And I ended up smashing GCSEs out the park, and very little, revision or coursework or so forth. And, everything seemed fine and, brilliant at that stage. But once again, now I've kind of moved into so many different areas. I've grown this network across Leicester, because your network is your net worth. Yeah. And now with this incredible network, I'm still trying to identify new ways of making money, so I can fend for myself. I don't want to keep on asking for £5 for my dad for dinner money, etc., etc. So I started mixing in and started understanding a little bit more about, what do people do? How do people make money? And obviously I went in, in those areas I was in, people were doing the wrong things to make money. So I started picking up on that. But that's what taught me things like, one, how a distribution network works. How do you, manage money. This is the first education and first involvement I've actually got to managing money, managing debt versus profits and, gross profit, net profit, time that you're spending on things, weighing of it was a crazy learning experience,
Yeah.
to say the least, but I ended up making money. Um, that is basically where I end up to just before college. Do you want me to go on? Because this is where the excitement bits go on.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible journey, bro. And I think, it's not to be missed. And we'll touch on a few points that you made earlier, because I think the moving around, and being, kind of one of very few, black or, kind of ethnic kind of minorities in the area, I think it's underestimated what that does to a person in terms of not just being young, but trying to fit in, or like you said, whether you're being bullied or just feeling like you have to assert some kind of dominance. It's very, unless you've experienced it, it's very difficult, to relate it to someone who probably, has no clue or will never experience what, we would have kind of went through in that sense. So I can I can definitely relate. I think the thing that I wanted to touch on when you mentioned, now you're at a stage where you're being exposed to, a lot of different things. I'm sure, things that your mom, your dad would prefer you not to, kind of get into, not to actually, be a part of. But like you referenced just now, in a very unorthodox way, those were the things that kind of taught you a few lessons. I'm sure that maybe even today you probably in a weird way carry with you. But certainly they were yeah, but certainly they were building blocks, because I've always and there's a lot of people that I kind of reference and watch and admire, and who are quite inspirational, and a lot of them came from places where there's a lot of stuff going on that they probably shouldn't have been a part of, but those were really some lessons and some teachings that they kind of cultivated to allow them to advance beyond their circumstances. And it sounds like that probably was the case for yourself. So if we're talking now leading into, like you said, the college side of things, and moving on up, from that point or that period where you were kind of getting in trouble, and your parents were probably, I'm sure, at their wits end thinking, yeah, this kid, yeah, who's gonna send him out of this country. I don't know what we're gonna do with him, but like I said, for so many of us who have grown up in these areas and been exposed to these different experiences and things that are beyond our control, they're happening in and around us. We're experiencing it, we're living it, we're seeing it. It's difficult to just switch off or just ignore. So oftentimes you will find yourself being influenced by it, or unfortunately becoming a victim of it. So it sounded like obviously we're at the point now where you're probably a bit influenced, or you're starting to dabble with probably the wrong crowd. So talk to us then about from that point onwards. Now you're obviously, like I said, a young adult. I'm guessing around 17, 18, maybe 19 years old. And now, where is, and actually it's not to be dismissed, like you said, you actually knuckled down, did your work, smashed the GCSEs and whatnot. But how are we now moving forward from this point onwards? Is college an option? Are we going into college with the same mentality that you had, throughout the younger teenage years? What's that looking like for you?
Yeah, so I now had grown that reputation across Leicester, and
Mm,
then I decided to obviously embark in my own business ventures to take me out of poverty and get me some level of foundation, of course, in any way, shape, or form. And I guess once again that was my learning building block. And I went into college. And I continued the business. And whilst continuing the business, doing the wrong thing, I strongly believe in karma. Doing the wrong thing, um, leads to the wrong types of people, leads to just bad experiences that come along. And once again, there's other people that are rivals in the industry that you constantly have to keep looking over your back and so forth. And with that, there was a situation on my 17th, no, 18th birthday. It was my 18th birthday, I believe. Um, 17th birthday. It was the 18th birthday. So I had gone to a club, and I had seen somebody that was a potential rival at the stage,
Mm.
and we got into a fight. And remember, I've been fighting for quite some time during this time, and I was good at it, um, and unfortunately, it ended up really bad for that person there. But as soon as that happened, um, I was then instantly remanded into custody, and I went jail. Shortly after, for a good 6 months. So naturally, from college, after that 1 year in college that I didn't really complete either, I was taken into jail. So that kind of ended my college years to a degree. And whilst I was there, I learned so much. That was, people go on summer vacations, right? That there was um, one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. Let me
Wow.
explain. Um, I went there and I started learning about people um, that were from a totally different background. They didn't have parents that had instilled morals and the right and wrong. I didn't mention this story, but whilst we were really in the poverty stage, my mom went to a cash point and she put in a card, and she knows she doesn't have £1,000 in there, um, just to take out £20 from the account, and
Mhm.
£1,000 comes out, right? She knew it wasn't hers. What did she do? Takes it and returns it back to the post office and gives it back. Some will just be even kicking her to this day for it, but everyone dreams of that happening to them. But it's just, I never understood it at the time, because they had this moral ground of being the right people, doing the right thing, and karma. Um, and I guess that was instilled in me, in that family environment, that bubble that was actually created, even though there's so much chaos that's happening everywhere else.
Mm.
That there showed um, a foundation of values and morals. And I went into prison, and I quickly learned that so many people have come from so many different environments, like broken homes or tragic stories, and their life is going in and out of jail, in and out of jail. That is the system for them. That's created. That's there, and they're so used to it. And I remember meeting so many different types of people inside there, and I started to learn about, the serious people versus the people that were just jailbirds, as they would call it.
Yeah.
And the serious people, the mindset that they had, the, and in jail, you've got to wake up at a certain time, you've got to have lunch at a certain time. There's routine, there's discipline, right?
Yeah.
I picked up the seriousness of people actually wanting to build something, because I'd make money, but I just wouldn't know what I was making money for, because I just knew that that was a big problem in our life, but I wouldn't know what I was earning the money for. But the serious people were doing it to build something, right? And I came out of jail with a real focus, um, thinking, right, what I'm doing is temperamental. It's small time. It's not got the legs, right?
Mm.
And this is the craziest thing about it. I now get my thinking hat on. I start looking online. This is the early stages of the internet, and I start trying to seek out opportunities. And I looked at women's UGG boots, back when it was first new. And so what I did was I took some of the money that I'd received. So when you come out of jail, you get a little pack of £180, right?
Mm.
And I saved a bit of that. And what I did with that was I had invested in buying some UGG boots, right? So I bought some UGG boots and I started selling it on eBay and Amazon. Oh, sorry, eBay at the time. And I realized that there's some good profit in there. I then opened this up and created a catalog. I've actually got it in my office still to this day, right? Paper-based catalog with all of the different tops and shoes that you can buy. And in essence, I would offer it out to all my friends, and then I'd start selling it online. And that's where I started understanding, when I was stung with eBay fees and bills and shipping and this, that, the other, I started understanding how low the profit margins actually were on some of the items, and started doing the A/B testing. And I started to build this, online kind of business to a degree.
Interesting.
And I remember going out with this this girl, and she was this person that everybody wanted to be with, but she'd be very low key and very, very humble, very career motivated. So most people go to college or university, and she actually took this apprenticeship in accounting, and I kind of looked up to her at the same time, right? I thought, wow, she really got her head screwed on, this, that, the other. And I was madly in love, right, at the time, the puppy love, right? And we had planned to move to London together. Yeah. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, brilliant, I can do this internet business in London, and we can live there, and I can do this. Fantastic, great stuff. The past got the better of me within that transition period.
Wow.
This was where I had actually just gone with a friend who wanted to buy something, right? But he was kind of afraid of doing so. So I decided to say, yep, sure, no problem at all. I'm not afraid of anybody or anything at all. Let me go off and get you what you want. So I go into this house, I get him what he wants, I walk out. As I'm walking out, there's a group of people who run inside the house, and they must have, stolen from them or something similar. All I know is the very next day, I ended up getting kidnapped for about 16 to 18 hours and getting the life beat out of me, right? I remember being black and blue in the hospital. And I can't even imagine what my parents must have been going through at the time. And they actually went to dig a hole because they thought I passed out. My face had all bruised up, and it was crazy. Then seeing, I woke up and I seen somebody near the door. So I got out, barged him out the way. It's a dark country lane, and I just hid behind the bushes. And I remember, I don't know how long I was there. I was probably passed out in the bushes, and I see a light of this football club. So I walk in there and I just say, can I get a glass of water, please? And I pass out on the table. Next thing I know, I wake up in A&E, and with police around me and trying to ask me questions about what's happened. And I was kind of really weirdly thinking, I have no idea what's just happened. I don't know what's gone on. And what had happened was there was already some plunge that was happening where they wanted to set this place up. They had sent me inside to go open the doors and get it from these guys. So a bunch of these guys went inside and took everything. And I was meant to move to London 2 weeks after, right, with my girlfriend at the time. So now we're getting the police, even going through all my phone list and speaking to my girlfriend at the time. And she's thinking, what on earth is going on? And she's a proper straight down the line,
yeah.
I don't know what to do. And it was a very confusing stage in my life for me. And I ended up breaking up with her, saying, nope, you move to London. I don't need any of this, and being very isolated. And then I thought, no, I want to go to London. I want to, live my life there. So I ended up still moving into the place that I had purchased originally. She had moved out somewhere else. But I thought to myself, I'm going to show her that I can come into any world, in any situation, and I can make it, even in her world. So I took her CV that I had on my laptop, and I just edited a few things, right? And I'd applied for a role. The first ever interview I got was for Pitney Bowes. It was a sales job. And that was a company that really trained me, molded me, and made me, that was the foundation of it all. I've spoken for a little while, but that's taken me through the journey between, that age to London. That's that gap there.
Yeah, now a lot happened in between that period in life. I could tell you, because like I said, we spoke offline, and I loosely knew about the situation you got in terms of the kidnapping and stuff like that. And I think my question is, because this is so telling. A lot of the stuff you described, is stuff that a lot of my friends, thankfully I've not had that same situation where someone's kidnapped me or whatever the case is, but I've known people who've been through that. I've had experiences with people who unfortunately been down that route before. So from a mental standpoint, and just understanding where you were psychologically, like what was going through your mind, what were you thinking at that stage? Is it here I am, here I go again? I suppose you mentioned obviously, actually moving, which I suppose was probably a good option in terms of getting away, from the neighborhood and the people that you were surrounded by at the time. But what was going through your head, in terms of, right, here I am again, I just wanted to help out my mate, or, obviously I'm sure or knew what you were getting yourself into, but now you're, I guess, in the back of a van and like you said, being beaten senseless. So where's your mind at this current stage then?
So during the actual kidnapping itself, it was weird because I knew what was happening, right? And before I got a moment, I'm tied up and I'm getting all kinds of things happen to me. But after a little while, the pain goes away, the pain goes away, and it's just one of those, weirdly enough, there was a level of serenity. There was like this, okay, what's going to happen is going to happen. I've remained calm throughout the entire process. What's happening is happening. It is what it is. I may die, I may not. Whatever. It was after that situation, that's where the real psychological battle started. I mean, part of me was, I'm still this prideful guy and this is my town, right? Do I go back and retaliate and go after these guys, right? And I've had many friends that I've done good by who are standing to that cause at the same time. But then the side of me is, in that moment where I've done nothing wrong, somebody's setting me up, right? Somebody that I trusted setting me up. Who can I trust? Who can I trust?
Wow.
So do I want to meet other people, and what are people going to say about this? Well, can I trust anybody? Can I trust anybody, including my ex? Could I trust that? Who can I trust? And I remember after a little while, I still kept a brave face, this, that, the other. I never really broke down. And then there was a moment where I was upstairs in my room, and I remember my dad walking up the stairs, and I literally just broke down in tears and just hugged him, and I just cried my eyes out and said, listen, man, this is, I don't know what life I've lived. I don't want this anymore, this, that, the other. And that was a moment where I thought to myself, right, I can either dwell on the past and get wrapped up in a situation that, and probably be dead at this moment, and live that life, or turn it around, move into an environment, and go get what I want, build something that I really want. And thankfully I opted for the latter. And that was a pivotal moment in my life. It was something that I was blessed with, that I look back at it as another really amazing pivot in my life that happened, that allowed me to refocus and reshape. And that's where I started believing in karma as well, because I did wrong. And in the circumstances where I thought I could kind of just leave it behind after doing wrong and coming back and thinking, okay, I can change it. No, it doesn't work like that. The laws of nature means you do wrong, you get wrong, right? And that was a moment where I thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. And when I when I changed my focus into working in Pitney Bowes in London, that all my energy, all my focus, all my attitude was around how do I don't care whatever happens. I don't ever want to look back. I want this to grow. I want to make this into something that, my family can live off. I can live off, my family's family can live off.
Mm.
I want to build this. Um, that
Super.
was my mindset.
Yeah, no, bro, like I can't say it enough, and I've told you this on many occasions because, like I said, I've seen the journey, and I know where you are right now and the amazing stuff that you're doing. So we're definitely going to get into that, But I think it's important, with all the people that I've sat down and really had conversations with on a deep level, to really try and see, you know, like I said, the name of the show is Bring Others Along because the purpose of this is to really try and inspire and motivate, youngsters, people who probably are going through or been through a similar situation that you described today, and to understand that, you referenced it earlier, there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? There is a way, there is going to be a moment where you probably need to make that distinction between do you go down, the old route, or do you kind of carve out a new life for yourself and try and elevate beyond your circumstances and all that's happening in and around you, so you know and it's actually interesting you mentioned having that moment with your dad, because in the midst of me trying to understand psychologically where you were with all the things that were happening, like you said, knowing that you've done wrong and now it's coming back in a lot of ways to kind of hurt and harm you. What are your parents thinking? They've seen and probably sacrificed and invested so much in trying to obviously get you and your sister out of situations that they know probably weren't conducive to you guys having a good life. But now here you are having that moment with your dad, being vulnerable, crying, which a lot of us, let's face it, as black, Asian, just ethnic men and just in general, really don't really try and show our emotions, I think, as much as we should do. So
Yeah.
that moment with your dad, I'm sure you probably recognize in that moment, okay, like he's actually serious and you're turning the corner. Did you ever, and I'm a big component of this because it's a journey that I'm on at the moment, in terms of, really getting my mental health in order, and trying to really deal with a lot of past traumas that I've experienced as well. Did you, in those moments or at that period in your life, seek or have conversations, with a therapist or anything of that nature?
Not at that stage. That came many years later when I really wanted to understand my mind more,
Okay.
and why I trigger in things. But at that point, no, it was suck it up and take care of business.
Yeah, as you know what, I've heard that countless times, and I think that was also one of the things I had to, in a lot of ways, unlearn. In these last couple of years, it's been pretty tough because I started to feel a bit more, I guess, free in expressing myself, being vulnerable, speaking to people. I've never really done that. It was always, as you mentioned, kind of suppress what you're really feeling and just crack on, just get on with it. Life is tough, life is hard. So what? We move forward. But like you said, it catches up with you. If you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. It's just simple as that. So no, that's super powerful, bro. And like I said, we've talked a bit about the journey from pretty much 5 years old, up to kind of a young adult, and you kind of moving in or moving out of your situation in Leicester now into London, and a whole lot obviously took place prior to that move. But here we are working at Pitney Bowes. You're kind of looking to carve out a new life for yourself. What's the mindset now? What's the mentality now? What are you thinking? How are you looking to move forward? You know, expand on that.
Shane, I was a beast. Oh my God, I was a
Come
beast.
on.
Um, I came to London with a point to prove. I came to London with a mindset that, you know what? I remember at this point, I don't trust anyone either, right? I didn't trust anyone because I'm still challenged with the mental issues that I was faced with the kidnapping and so forth. I remember going to the final interview and they asked me, you know, what happened to you? I said, I just got into a car accident, right? and and the person who was actually interviewing me was, you know, turns out to be one of my best friends now, right?
Mm.
And he always laughs about that story. Um, but you know, going in there, I wasn't there to have friends. I wasn't there to mess around. I was there to build something and build a career and stick at it. And equally, I was hesitant on my past criminal record. Okay,
Mm.
that was there. So I had a short time span, a window to go in there and obliterate it. You know, make a name for myself
Absolutely.
um, before anything could catch up on me. Because I'm thinking that if I can show my worth and my value, they will then overlook the past I've had to go through this.
Mm.
I went there with this crazy mentality. This if I could work 24 hours a day, I would not sleep. I would work, right? And this is a telesales. I'm selling franking machines. You know, there's only so much I can do. Um, but people would go down to the pub. This is the telesales environment. They'd go down to the pub locally. This, that, the other. I wasn't interested in that. I would be there. I'd get to work. And I remember living in Greenhithe near Kent at this time. And to travel from Greenhithe to London Bridge, it'd be about an hour and a half or something similar, right? But to get to the train station, maybe another half an hour, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. And I'd get to the office about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, right? I try to be there as early as I possibly could do, just to show them that I'm here, I'm ready to work. I'd remember wearing a suit and shirt, always crisp, no matter what, because you are, you know, you're represented by how your mindset is what you look like or how you feel about yourself. And when I was younger, I always
Good, you
wanted to
feel
be that guy.
good. Yeah.
Then,
No, I said you look good, you feel good. No, I
yeah,
definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And you know, not to cut you off, but I suppose, like you said, now you're well, you've definitely recognized, you know, your past life and you know what you're involved in. You know, that's not going to define who you are moving forward. You know, and I think that's so powerful because for so many people, what happens or happened, I should say, in your past tends to dictate, you know, almost how, you know, your present is lived and, you know, almost your future in a way. And I've been a victim of that, you know, similar circumstances in terms of, you know, my past life or like I said, what I've experienced, what I've been through. And you kind of hold on, you know, a bit to that. And you're like, are people going to accept me if they know what's happened in the past? Are people going to be, you know, judging you know what's happened based on my life experience? So there's all these crazy thoughts that goes through your mind. And I think, you know, for those people who are able to really conquer and overcome those thoughts and all of those messages and what they're telling themselves in their heads, you know, because that's really where the battle is lost and won. You know, forget what people are saying because they're going to say it anyways. Regardless how you feel, they're going to talk. So when it really boils down to, you know, what you're telling yourself each and every day and what are you saying to you about you. So I think it's super empowering, you know, what you've just described in terms of now I'm turning up 5, 6 a.m. in the morning. You know, I'm there before everyone. You know, I'm showing up, I'm looking crisp, I'm looking clean, and you've got a goal, right? You're driven at this point. So I guess, and it's funny because I'm not sure where we'll overlap in your journey, but you're at this role now and you're working, and like you said, you're almost trying to outwork your past before it kind of catches up with you, which is a crazy mindset to even have, because I can only imagine, you know, the kind of pressure that you're putting on yourself, really. But you're in this role now and you're developing a career, you're obviously working hard. and you've got, you know, a mindset of this is where I want to do, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do. How are you now thinking in terms of this new environment? You're in London, you're becoming a professional, you know, how are you utilizing this time and these skills that you're building to really propel you to that next step? You know, what's the thought process? Where do we go from Pitney Bowes? Talk us through that process of that transition.
So just putting it quickly, I guess, once again, I was there to really take care of business and really show myself very quickly. And as a result, a lot of people would mingle outside of work and so forth, and especially in a new sales environment when the new kid comes in and he's just, you know, outworking everybody or trying to push everything through. And, you know, I was very successful at it at the same time, very quickly. That then got me to a stage where I didn't have any friends outside. London's a new place. I didn't really know anybody either. I was living a very isolated life, right? And living in Greenhithe in Kent, you know, just going to work and coming back and cooking and cleaning and, you know, having very little social engagement with anyone else, just thinking about work and focusing for many years. I then quickly progress. I seize every opportunity. I remember the director of Pitney Bowes is a large, you know, global company. A director coming in and having to speak about, you know, the Pitney Bowes, what it looks like, this, that, the other. And I just grabbed him there. And then I said to him, look, I love everything about the company. I am here. You know, you can look at my stats, you can look at my results. I need an opportunity. I want to get into field sales. That was the rock star of the sales environment. And I got it. I was then looked at this ODT call center, you know, as this, you know, unseen hero that is now entering into the wild of the field sales, right? And I went there, same thing. And remember, this time I'm living in Greenhithe, but they've given me a company car now. I'm now in my suit and boot, and I'm very proud of myself, you know. And I'm traveling to West London every day. And you can imagine Greenhithe, Kent to West London every single day, rush hour traffic, M25. So my life is in the car now. I'm living outside, not getting home till 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. And I'm doing this every single day relentlessly. I win a number of awards for working extremely hard, but very isolated at the same time, extremely isolated. So during this time, I read the book, The Game by Neil Strauss. I'm not too sure if you've ever come across the book before, but if you have, Google it.
You had a conversation about this.
Yeah. I just did that on the weekends whilst I was in London, just, you know, decided to go off and meet a couple of people. I, you know, some girls I could meet anywhere at all to invite me to parties or something similar, you know, so I can associate with other people outside of work, if that makes sense, so I can focus on work. And it was great, but then I got headhunted because somebody else in Pitney Bowes spoke about me. So I had recruiters trying to approach me, and there was a company that actually approached me directly, saying, "Look, we want you. We've heard about you. We want you." And they offered me a bigger, better package. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, it's about time. I need to focus on, you know, progressing. And there was a lot more money that was on.
Yeah.
So I said, great. I went there, interviewed, you know, I had that meeting with these individuals. It wasn't really an interview, it was just a walkthrough process, really. And I got the job. Within 3 months, I'm really working hard at this place, but it's a new industry, telecommunications, trying to get my head around it still, but still doing well, you know. But they had then caught, I totally forgot, you know, through my naivety, that I've still got a criminal record. I went into this role. After 3 months, my boss comes to me, he said, "Look, I'm really happy with the way that you're performing, etc. But the bigger bosses, they've just had a report come through. I was on vacation. If I had had it, then I would have been able to explain it to them. But they've kind of said, no chance, you know." And I got sacked on the spot.
Wow.
because of my criminal record. So it now came back and bit me straight back. And I remember at this time thinking, whoa, his whole career gone down the drain. You know, what am I going to do now? And I thought to myself, right, I'm kind of screwed. So during that time of Pitney Bowes, right, I had actually gone, because I had a few interviews at a couple of other places. I got a couple of jobs and never accepted it. And I felt as though I need to understand a little bit more about this recruitment game. So, these recruiters are still calling me. So I'm trying to understand, and I figure out that they walk away with a percentage based on placing candidates, et cetera, et cetera. So I just went back to each and every single one. I thought to myself, I have to do something. I have to change this. This can't be my future. So I picked up the phone and spoke to everyone who gave me a job. And I said to them, look, you liked who I was. I understand that you're working with recruiters at the moment. However, I know a number of people just like me, if not better than me, that I can get in through your doors. So would you be interested in me putting them your way and maybe you giving the fees to me? I understand that you're paying 25%. I'll do you 20%. Would that be something that you'd be interested in? And so I went back and there's one particular recruitment company, CPI Selections, that had given me loads of these interviews and I got loads of these jobs within email marketing. And then boom, I went after every single one of them. So now I'm placing candidates there, taking 20%, 20%, 20%, taking even I found terms and conditions online, which I quickly edited and just sent it across to them just so they can sign and send it back. Now I've got this gig where I'm a recruiter, right? But I don't have a website. I don't have a company. And I don't know, I don't have anything really apart from just a few email addresses that I've got and, LinkedIn and how I basically find the company. But anyone new that I approach who doesn't know me will not want to be with my company because I don't have a website or a presence or anything. So I said, right, what do? I called up CPI Selections again, spoke to the owners, and these guys hated me, okay? There were two Neils, Neil Shipman and Neil Moy. And I said to them, look, guys, I know that you probably are pissed off at me for doing what I did, okay? But you should get to see that, I'm pretty good at what I do. What I'd like to do is speak to you about using your company name and the image, et cetera, and I'll give you a percentage of each transaction I walk away with. Would that be something of interest to you? So they thought, yeah, let's see how it goes. They thought maybe I'll just fizzle out after a couple of months. So they gave me access to it. And I started gunning down every lead, every possibility, thinking this is my now shot to regain where I want to go. And after a couple of months, they invited me over to High Wycombe and said, why don't you come down and work in the office from us? We'll actually hire you some resources. We'll take a bit more percentage from, your trades. But in essence, you can come in and run your own team, open up the digital division. So then I did exactly that, opened up the digital division. And that's when I started working with Channel Advisor because I was trying to place people there.
Oh, so this is where, okay, now the dots are connected. Okay. Right. I think, and just to take a pause there, because from my perspective, it's, I want to see how, because you spoke about so many different things in that period of time. And the one thing that stood out for me was, when the company recognized you had a criminal record, right? Because I had a guy, again, I think I mentioned him earlier, maybe offline, we were talking, Raf, super decent human being, incredible guy as well. And, he was just explaining his situation in regards to, he also went to prison. And after coming out, he tried to do the right thing, similar story, tried to get a job, blah, blah, blah. And it was, almost impossible, how he described it, to get a job. And it always seemed anyways, like his past just kept, or in some way, shape or form was catching up to him for obviously a crime he didn't commit, but just wrong place, wrong time. And, you mentioning that kind of triggered that in my head. And I'm thinking, what are you thinking at that stage? Are you like, here I go again, I'm back in, or I'm being pulled back, one step forward, two steps back? and then also how much of what you were exposed to, what you were doing, back then, back in Leicester, kind of like you said, developing a reputation. How much of those skills and techniques are you applying to the work, I guess, that you're doing now in more of a professional setting? And we'll touch on that in part two. I know you guys are super intrigued. I know there's a lot more to discuss, but yeah, we're looking forward to getting Arjun's take on kind of how we progress after this, and we'll catch up in part two. So stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.